Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast. And today it's my pleasure to talk with Leonard Buccholz, who is the Car Biz Coach. And
Yes,
he's
sir.
got a long and interesting career that we're going to explore today. So welcome, Leonard.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. So to begin with, just to set the context, would you please describe what you do as a Car Biz Coach, who your customers are, and the types of services that you provide?
Sure. Yeah, the Car Biz Coach came about, and what I do is I coach and train in service departments, and I teach service advisors how to maximize their service sales process. And the result of that is that the dealership, of course, has a rise or an increase in profits and customer satisfaction. I started in this business way back when, back in the, I won't say the date, but a long time ago. And I started off in sales and have worked in every position in the fixed operations, from being a service advisor all the way up to being a service director. And then I made a transition into training, which I had stayed in since 2009 in various forms, working with a couple of different companies until I finally launched my own last year in January.
Okay. All right. So what's the importance of quality and performance to your clients?
That's a great question. I think that when we're talking to not only the dealership but also the personnel in the store, that when it comes to performance, the first thing we have to do is establish good KPIs, key performance indicators.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what we can't do is coach or train to a generality. We can't just say, I just need you to do better. What we have to do is coach and train to a specific. And the better we are at getting to the specifics of performance, the better the performance. So you bring up a great point. If it's about quality and performance, it's about first getting down to the specifics. And how do we coach and train to those numbers? Because we can get a response. Plus, we can track it, measure it, monitor it, and coach it.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting point, because I know when I've gone into the services shop, they say, you will be getting a survey here soon. Let's see you answer 5 and everything, because if we get a grade lower than 5, we don't get paid.
Right.
This biases all the results, and it invalidates the survey results. So how do you get around that?
Right. Yeah. The focus in our industry since the 90s has been and I think it started from the manufacturers, right? It was not a dealer initiative. It came from the manufacturers because they wanted to drive the perception of quality. So what they did is they said, we're going to have a customer satisfaction index. And those questions came about because they wanted to see if they could increase their standing in the marketplace and say, look at our car, we're number 5 in quality and we're number 5 in performance. So on that side of it, those questions all came about from the OEMs. What's happening? And instead of getting to just asking about CSI, and focusing on that, the manufacturers and the dealers have started to focus on retention, which is really the new CSI. Mm-hmm. So the questions are going to start changing, and they're going to start evaluating the performance based on how well am I keeping the customers in my service department and how well am I taking care of them? Because that's going to be the true measurement of what customer retention or CSI is.
Right, yeah. Because otherwise you can get a measure there, but it's a vanity metric. It just makes you feel good, but it doesn't give you indication of what's actually going on.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, because I was talking with some very smart guys yesterday, and one of them said that, when it comes to the questions, the only person that really responds to the CSI survey is someone who's really angry.
That's right.
Because they're the ones that are angry, right? The person that's really, really happy and satisfied, they're great. They were fantastic. They were wonderful. And they don't typically take the time to fill out the survey. Yeah. So, our industry has become so skewed to addressing that we've gotten away from, hey, what is the real purpose of us opening the doors? To bring customers in and take care of them. And I think that our focus is starting to move away from that question.
Yeah, no, I always have a pet peeve about that, because that's like you can bias the results, you can change the results just by changing the questions. Nothing's different.
Yes. And, I mean, you really think about it, just a simple change in a few words can make a huge difference, not only to the person that's being surveyed, but also to the person completing the survey. So yeah, great point.
Yeah, and so I think that's why people have kind of gone on to what the Net Promoter Score is. You know what that is?
Yes, run across that.
Yeah, that gives a little better indication, but still it's subjective.
That's the thing with all of our roles in the service department and fixed operations, right? Because it is subjective. It's not based on anything that we do. It's based on the customer's perception. Now, we may have thought, that's why that question about people that raise their hands in the workshops, when it comes to somebody asking somebody, hey, do you think you do a bad job? The answer 100% of the time is no, I never do a bad job. So it's all about the perception, because the customer coming in, what they walk away with is how you're going to be graded. You may think, I did a fantastic job. My tech did a great job. The cashier was awesome. The parts were there, all those things. And for some reason, the customer took it a different way and got a bad experience. Or they felt emotionally that something happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I just had an interesting conversation before talking to you. It's similar types of things, is that you got to look at, what you want to do is you want to fail fast. You want to try something, does it work? No, pivot and try something else. You got to really understand is what is motivating that customer.
Yes.
And you can't be proud. As soon as you start having pride about yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure. So
I agree 100%. When we start saying to ourselves, oh man, we're doing great, that's the time that I start, as a coach and a trainer, I say, we need to look at that. Yeah, how can we get better? My old drill instructor in the Marine Corps never let me get away with just an average performance, right? It was always, you could do better. Even when I didn't want to do any better. We're going to
raising the bar.
That's right. Let's go up a little bit higher.
So what are one or two of the biggest myths or misconceptions that you face when you start talking to service departments about performance?
Yeah. I think the number one thing is that people believe that the fix of repairing whatever's wrong or what's happening in that service department is going to be a fast thing, and it's not. It never is. And I tell people all the time, before I start into a coaching or training program, I say things to them like, look, you didn't get here all at once, and you're not going to get out of this all at once. It's going to take a lot of steps to get us to that point. So there's one big myth. The second big myth is that most people believe that everything's broken, when in reality, chances are that when you really step back and look at things, there's a few things that really need repair, but most of the other stuff is probably just fine. And all we need to do is make sure that we're focusing on completing that service sales process, right? And I think the third big myth is that, especially in stores that are struggling, is that they have bad people. They don't have bad people. What they have is people who are unled or uncoached or unmonitored. That's what they have.
Okay. So how do you get your clients over that hump so they can address those challenges and make the improvements?
You have to have a reality check, right? You have to have some things. So I love starting off with, when I go into a store and I start looking around, I go right to, what do people that work here think, right? So we do a survey right off of the bat. We want to find out what their perception is, because 90% of what's going on, I'll get out of those notes right up. I don't even have to really, dig into that deep, because they'll tell me everything. And then the last piece of that is, of course, the observation, because for a lot of us that have been around a long time, we can walk into a store and within 30 minutes to an hour, pretty much figure out everything that's going on. It doesn't take very long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's see, what are perceived obstacles that you encounter that might prevent you from achieving the success that you seek?
Yeah. Obstacles. First of all, like I said earlier, a belief that the people in the store are bad. Obstacles being that maybe they don't believe in the service sales process. They think that they don't need one. Like, oh, we don't need one. We're a small store. We know everybody, but in reality, they need one, right? Those are two big ones right off of the bat. And I think the third one is that a lot of stores feel like they're not that they can't get a benefit from training, coaching, and getting somebody from the outside. They say, we can do it ourselves. But if you were doing it yourself, you wouldn't be in this position. You would already have achieved the numbers you were looking for, right?
Okay. So why is there such a broad range in services from dealer to dealer? Like, we were talking before, like the Infinity dealer is like superb, but somebody else is not. What causes that?
Yeah. So I like to think of it this way. I think every dealership is a kingdom, right? And the kingdoms all run the way that king likes it to run. Yeah. So in this kingdom over here, we do things this way. In this kingdom over here, we do things this way. And so a customer could have, what's funny, what's really funny is a customer could have 2 cars purchased from the same ownership group, go to 2 different dealerships and have 2 completely different experiences because of that thought, right? That this kingdom over here does things a little bit different than this kingdom, even though they share all the same commonalities. They share the same owner, the same policies, the same procedures. Chances are they share the same training, everything. But because this kingdom over here is run a little bit differently, you get a different experience. And it's difficult to develop continuity, even within groups of stores, even if they're really close to each other. So it's a constant battle for GMs, service managers, service directors to try and match, right, what other people are doing, not only in their own group or even in their own store at times.
Yeah, so it's all the individual owner or manager of that dealership is what sets the tone for everybody. Everybody.
And, that's the whole part of that culture thing we keep hearing about all the time. What's the culture like in that store? And that is not only set by the people that are in that store, but we're all following that same leader. And if that's the way that we do things in the store, that's how we're going to behave and perform.
So how does that problem get, what's the genesis for that to be? Is it because it's the way those people have moved up in their career and not have the skill set?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there's a whole lot. Our industry, is one that we're one of the few industries that you can just walk in out off the street. You know that, right? I mean, a guy or a woman could just walk in the front door. We could talk to them, hire them, and start training them. They could be selling cars tomorrow. They could be selling cars that afternoon. They could walk in the door. We could talk to them, train them, show them how to use the phone. They could be greeting customers in the service drive that very same day. Okay. So because of that transitional nature, so to speak, of our dealerships, we end up with people from all different walks of life who have all different skill levels, who have all different perceptions and realities, and we got to somehow merge those into one single voice. It's very, very difficult. And we're extremely transitional, but we are in a business where people are churning in and out all the time.
Yeah,
and it's difficult to get that.
Well, I can tell you when Saturn was
down to.
So
what is it? I'm sorry.
Look, I can say when GM had Saturn, that was a delight to go into the dealership because you didn't have to worry about all the high pressure and everything. Here's the price. That's what you pay. You can buy the car and leave.
Right. Not right. There was nothing. And that's part of the evolution of the one price, one stop shopping, right? There was a lot of people that bought into that. I think nowadays, also, if you really think about it, that gave rise to companies like TrueCar. I want to get a price before I walk into the dealership to make sure I'm paying the best fair price. Carfax and those people like that. Yeah. So, I think it had a lot to do with that. I think that people are looking for not only what they perceive to be a fair deal, but they want to feel like they can trust that deal.
Well, one of the interesting things that many, many years ago, my wife found a book about buying a car, and it was actually teaching you a decision-making process where you go through and say, you just don't buy it on price. You look at the reputation of the dealership, you look at the reputation of the service department, how far away are they, what's their inventory, and you've got completely different and unique criteria.
Yes.
You can decide which one to go for.
Yes. I haven't run across that book. I've never read it, but that certainly is some strong, sound advice. And I think that people today are much more savvy and they have access to so many different avenues to find out more about the store that they want to go to, right? I can pick up my cell phone, my smartphone, and in 5 minutes find out everything I need to know about that dealership. I can find out who works there. I can find out their average pricing. I can find out what the reviews are on several different sites. I can find out everything. Then I make a buying decision. Do I want to go there or do I want to go someplace else?
Okay. All right. So I got a question for you now. I noticed recently you've been posting these little short snippet videos on some kind of challenge. So what is that all about?
That started, I ran across, I was an inspiration from LinkedIn. There was a guy by the name of Joe Applebaum who I check LinkedIn all the day, just like a lot of other people, and I'm following content. And this guy pops out and he says, hey, I got a challenge for you, 30 videos in 30 days. And I had never thought of it that way. And I was like, 30 videos in 30 days, could I do that? Do I have enough, that I could actually do that 30 days in a row? So I looked at it, I said, yeah, let me try it. And next thing you know, I'm doing these little videos, I try to keep them less than 2 minutes. Most of them are at a minute or so, because I just want to, hit the topic and then let people, decide for themselves if they want to pursue it or not. But it's been a lot of fun. You got to be pretty, you got to be up every single day to talk about a new subject, no doubt about it. But the last couple of them have been about FUD. I don't know if you've seen some of the FUD videos, the fear, uncertainty, despair, and disease in stores. But I've been concentrating on that a little bit, trying to educate people about FUD.
Cool. So how many have you done now? How close are you to 30?
I finished this week, as a matter of fact. 30 videos in 30 days, yeah.
Wow, so you made it.
Yeah, it was. It was harder than I thought. I mean, there's a couple days, like everything else, you're like, I don't want to shoot a video today. But, you do. You get out there and you get it done.
So what type of reaction have you received from those?
Lots of, people that are like, some of them, obviously, that they don't connect, but the ones that have been connecting have been the things like FUD. People got kind of behind that because they had not heard that before. So a lot of them like that. People sending me little texts and messages saying, hey, I like that one video, or one guy sent me a message saying, hey, could you talk more about this subject? And I said, sure. So it was, kind of fun. It's a different kind of engagement.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You start getting that interaction with people. So,
yeah.
Let's talk about your career. How did you go from Marines into being a car biz coach?
So, in 1989, when I left the Marine Corps, I told my wife, I said, well, we're done. I'm going to be out, so I need to find something to do. And I have always loved being around cars. I've always loved the smell of a new car. I don't know about you, but I think that's a fantastic smell. And I said, I'm going to check out this car business kind of a thing. And so I started applying for different jobs at dealerships as a salesperson, and I got hired. And then 3 months into my career, it was, hard because you're there at the store a lot of times, and our family was not used to that. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to have to make a transition, which I did, into service. Next thing you know, I've been a service advisor, service manager, service director, every position in the dealership over the course of my career. And of course, I tell people all the time, I'm the guy who's mistaked his way to the top, right? I've made all the mistakes. And what I try and do is impart to you the knowledge not to make the same mistakes. And that's my philosophy. Some people get it, fortunately.
Yeah, you don't want, I mean, I kind of take the same approach too. So, I know what does not work, so don't do that. Try something different.
That's right. I love that. You don't mind if I use that later, do you? I know what does not work.
Yeah,
that's good.
Ahead. That's fine. Just copyright me.
No problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about, what you do. What have you success that you've had recently? You were talking about when you're training a service advisor. So what have you my big success is about the people in the store, right? When I get excited when a service advisor gets it or a service manager gets it and they start improving in performance. And I was, talking recently about a service advisor I had in the store
that wasn't doing very well. He was struggling. And I had not gotten to the core of what was going on with him, right? So I had to get him in, and we started counseling and coaching him. So I started asking him questions. I'm like, why are you here? And he's like, well, this is where I started. I was a lot person. I, worked my way up, and I became a service advisor. And I said, so, what's motivating you? I mean, why do you come to work every day? And he said, I just come to work and do what I can so I don't get fired. So once we got to that, we were able to, we're like, okay, hold on. You're coming into work so you don't get fired? Okay, look, we can fix that. Here's what we need to talk about. What is it that you want to get out of this? What type of job do you like to do? What are some of the things? And he was talking about being a member of a community. He thought at some point in his life that he may want to be a policeman. And I pointed out to him, I said, look, our dealership, the dealership we're in right now, is a community. It's a community of people who are all dependent upon each other to do well. And the more performance, the better performance, the more that you do means that we all grow and we all profit from that. And once he got those words, he said, you know what, that makes total sense to me. And it was like night and day. Within a couple of days, his performance numbers were going up. He was selling more. But, really the best thing was he was happier. He was a much better service advisor because of that. It was a win, a huge win.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm seeing a kind of a theme through all my podcasts is passion is what keeps coming up over and over again. And once you find that inner passion, that makes a big difference.
Yes, it does. Totally. There's nothing like that. I mean, I'm at a point now where I want to give back. I could say, okay, I helped that guy become a better service advisor. I helped that woman become a better service manager. I helped that GM become a better GM. That's all I care about anymore. It's about being able to help people grow and learn in their business, but also to be successful. I mean, we all like people who are successful. I like successful people. You like successful people. And that's who we want to hang around. But we most want to emulate. And success emulates success. That's what I like.
So I imagine, though, in the service industry like that, there's a lot of churn with people coming and going all the time.
Yeah.
So how do you get this advice to stick so they can grow this culture and continue improving rather than keep changing people out?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that it starts with the store itself. You've got to have a couple things in place to make that stick. Like you said, the people to stick. And the first thing you got to have is not only compassion for the people that work there. Number two, you got to have a reasonable expectation of performance. They have to know what you are going to hold them accountable for. Number three, there has to be a reasonable expectation of pay, right? How much do I get paid? If the pay plan matches not only the industry, but what you're tasking me, what you're asking me to do. And I think the fourth thing is the leadership in that store. All those things come back to that culture, to that definition of culture is what type of leadership do I have? Do I have leaders that care about me? Do they sincerely have my best interest at heart, or am I just another number? Do I show up at the store because this is where I go every day and this is where I park? That's what I do. Yeah.
So when you're working with these different service departments, do you have some that you just say, these are lost cause, no matter what I do, it's not going to make a difference?
I can honestly say in my career and working with several different companies that I've only walked into one store where I felt that, where I was like, okay, this is going to require a major surgery because this store is completely broken. And, those stores are so far and few between, though. I mean, it is so rare where they're just completely broken. But typically when that's going on, there's everything going on in those stores, right? There's not only leadership, but there's like theft and crimes and drugs and just you name it. It's all happening in that store. Those stores are pretty broken. But for everybody else, 99% of the time, as I said before, you can correct with some. I like to think of it as shining a light, right? What exists in the darkness grows and festers. But once you shine a light on it, it dies. It can't grow anymore. And you have to go in and shine a light on what's happening in that store.
Yeah. So how do you get So if you're going to go to a brand new dealership and talk to their service department, how do you get their attention that they need to talk to you?
That's typically, though, I mean, usually what happens is they reach out to me or to somebody else in my field, right? They say, okay, we need to get some help. And typically that's how that happens. That's part of the reason why all of us are putting out content on sites like LinkedIn and doing podcasts and things like that, because we want to make sure that this space and those thoughts are out there. But I think that typically when that happens, the stores themselves finally realize they're like, okay, we need help. We need to find someone that can help us from the outside. And to me, it's kind of like going to marriage counseling, right? When two people are not getting along and they decide that they want to get some help, they don't ask each other. They go to outside, and that's pretty much what happens with dealerships.
Yeah. Now, I also look at it as a 12-step process. Most everybody's in denial. And once you get beyond that, you say, we do have a problem, let's solve it. Then you can move to step 2 and bring people in to fix it.
That's right. You're absolutely right. That is. At some point, they have to recognize we got something we need to get taken care of.
Okay. So what does success look like for you as the Car Biz Coach?
Success for me, that's my passion. And my success is when I am done with the store and I know that everybody in that store has been trained and they're doing what they need to do in order to not only increase their customer retention, customer satisfaction, but also their profits. And I can step back and say, okay, you guys already know everything. You guys don't need me anymore. That's when I say, okay, this was a good deal. This worked out well. And that's what I'm trying to achieve in every single store I go into.
Okay, so how do you measure success? How do you know you've achieved that?
That actually, it's more about the people in that store who tell me. If I train in a store and it doesn't go well, which fortunately does not happen, has not happened, or you never know, it could happen tomorrow. But what happens is the feedback that you get tells you that it didn't go well, because the people in the store are saying things like, really appreciate the effort, but we didn't get what we were after. And when you're done with the store and everything's like running like clockwork, the engine's firing on all cylinders, people are excited, they're happy, and they say things like, you know what, I really appreciate it. You pointed out to me things I needed to change, and I changed them, and this is what happened. And they can build on that. That's how they move forward in their quest for success.
So how long is a typical engagement then? If you walk in, how long does it take before you get to that success state?
That's a great question. That all depends on the store. I've been in stores and I've seen stores in 30 days go from, having issues to bam, that they're just rocking and rolling. Everything is just going great. And I've been in stores where I've been in for 6 months and it took them 6 months to figure it out. There's no rhyme or reason. It just depends on the store and the personnel and what's going on with them. But I will say the average time, most times people engage with me, we're doing either a 3-month or a 6-month engagement with a commitment to review at the end of that time period to see if we need to do more.
Okay, cool. So we kind of talked about, how people, you get your clients, but if somebody is going to realize we got to do something, what's the most important question they should be asking when they come to you?
Yeah. Probably the most important question that they should be asking themselves is, are we accomplishing what we were setting out to do? Are we meeting key performance indicators? Because at the end of the day, as you well know, everything that we do equates to a number, and that number is called net profit. And if we're not making profits, we don't get to stay open. We're not open. We're not in business anymore. So, that's really what they need to look at and say, is everything that we're doing contributing to us making a profit? And if it's not, what do we need to do to fix it? I think the best thing that people can do, and you tell me what you think, I think the best thing that they can do is to break out in several categories. So they might say, they might take a list and write down personnel, then they might write training, then they might write compensation, then they might write hours, then they might write amenities, they might write our benefits and everything else. and they get a list. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20, and they grade themselves on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best. And what happens is they look down at that and they go, oh. And because everybody does it, you're going to have input, right? People are going to say, well, like a manager might say, well, we don't do very well in compensation, but the owner thinks that you're doing fantastic in compensation, right? That is certainly a flashpoint for change in that store. But I think if they sit down and analyze it and do that, how well do we, train, keep personnel, what do we do, leadership, and grade themselves honestly, then they'll have a starting point as to what they need to do next.
Yeah, and the trick there is getting the right questions or the right categories.
It is.
Otherwise, you can be, again, lying to yourself, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, it can turn out to be that way. That's why you don't let just one person do it.
Yeah. Well, you got to look at things in terms of like recognition and communication. And
yes.
You feel that you're being listened to when you raise and that's, if it's going into a black hole, that makes people feel bad and that demotivates. And we're not talking about commissions for recognition, but actually recognize people for the contributions they make.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
Because money's a demotivator. It works momentarily.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think that the biggest challenge that I have in stores that are having issues, the one that I see also is that they have communication problems. They're not very good at communicating, even among themselves or with the customer.
Yeah. I can imagine there's going to be things like the salesman promises one thing, pick it up and it's not there, and this finger pointing and this,
Sure.
Drop the ball someplace. All
the time, we have a saying for it on the training side, is that people develop their own islands, right? Each department is an island. And, when we go into a store, when I'm in there training, I'm trying to build bridges between all the islands. So they finally start talking to each other again. So those things can get worked out. Yeah. Right.
So competition for you, what you're in the field is, how does somebody distinguish to go to the Car Biz Coach versus your competitor?
Yeah. That's a good question. And because there's a lot of really good people out there, smart people that know how to fix a dealership. I think that this distinguishing factor is: do you want someone that's as passionate about you are as you are in this car business? Do you want that person in your store? Do you want the guy that's going to show up, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night, and if he has to, 6 days a week? Because when I'm training in the store, I'm focused completely on that store. I don't take calls. I don't take outside business. I don't do anything like that. It is for that store. Yeah. And I'm not saying that other guys don't do that, but I'm just saying that when I'm focused on a group or on a store, my attention is 100%.
Okay. So let me ask you this question. Thinking about over your life, what have you learned like early on that still affects how you approach business today?
Oh my gosh. Communications are the number one thing. Setting goals, right? We have to have written goals in order to achieve what we're trying to achieve. This is also a give and take business, right? And you got to have the ability to communicate with the customer and give and take in that relationship with them, and build that relationship in order to be successful. And I think probably the thing that I think about the most is how do we deliver on the promise to the customer? How do we do that? What does that mean? And the best way that I know of to do that is, of course, by not only being professional, but also knowing your job and doing it the right way. And that customer walks away saying, man, this was the best experience I ever had in my life, which is really what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, you want to give them a wow experience.
Wow.
Something that completely above and beyond their expectations. So you've been in business now for yourself, what, about 18 months possibly?
Yeah, coming up on 19 months, yeah.
Okay, so what have you learned? If you were to start all over again now, what would you do different? What would you do the same?
Oh my gosh. I think that the biggest thing I would do is to start building a bigger platform on LinkedIn and on social media, and devoting more time to doing more things like this. Right, this is my first one.
Oh, cool!
I appreciate that so much. Yeah, thank you so much. But you know, getting the word out, because when you're starting off in this business, you have a lot of contacts. You know, I know a lot of people who all know me, but only a small percentage of people are actually looking for help in their stores, and it's a very small. Out of the 17,000 dealers across the country, at any given time, there's about 500 to 600 that are looking for help. Most of the other ones haven't reached the stage of, okay, we need to do something. So you got to put a lot of effort into putting the word out. So I would start over in that first. I would say, you know what, I need to make the presence bigger, faster, stronger to get the word out.
And what have you found that's successful that you would keep doing?
I love articles, posts, and writing on LinkedIn and Facebook, and joining there's quite a few different groups for dealerships right now, and the automotive industry and service professionals. So joining all of those has really made a big difference as well.
Well, very good. So are you focused mainly in Southern California, or are you looking nationwide when you're doing that?
If someone calls me up and it is a need, I'll travel. That's not a problem. I go pretty much anywhere.
Okay. Well, great. Okay, so Leonard, we're running out of time, but we could go on and on and on. This is a fascinating conversation. I really like your focus on the customer and trying to do the best job you can for them. So just so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with the Car Biz Coach?
Yeah, 3 ways. Of course, the same as everybody else. You can call, text, or email, right? So call or text is 760-419-9002. And email is my first name, Leonard, Leonard, at carbizcoaching.com.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, Leonard, fantastic storyteller. This is a fascinating conversation, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, sir. I so appreciate it.